I've been working on having more patience. I've been working on being more gracious. Can't kill myself for the time I wasted. Learn lessons come with elevation. I've been working on having more patience. I've been working on being more gracious. Can't kill myself for the time I wasted. Learn lessons come with elevation. I'm on a mission to achieve some greatness.
So, what is going on, everybody? I want to thank you for joining the third episode of Lived Experiences. Today I have Latricia Williams. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Of course, of course. First and foremost, Brother Jackie, thank you so much for allowing me to share your platform, for asking me to be a speaker. I really appreciate this opportunity and I do not take it for granted. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
We're happy to have you, most definitely.
So for those, I am Latricia Williams. For those who do not know me, I am the emotional empowerment coach. I am also an author of my first published book, which is Get Out of Your Feelings and Gain Control of Your Emotions, which you can find on Amazon. Super excited about that. And yeah, I am a certified life coach and I help empower and help women to go from being emotionally broken to emotionally whole masterpieces. So that is me. That is me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. I think this is going to be definitely a special conversation. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
Tonight's topic is, why is marriage so complicated? I personally believe that, in the most simplest way to put it, most people love the idea of marriage, but not the practicality of it. And we also, a lot of, just speaking from a man's standpoint, they tend to lack the discipline to be in a monogamous relationship. Not that it's not possible, but we spend most of our lives being players and having multiple women. So when we get married, it now becomes a culture shock, because instead of having all these women that you're used to having the attention and sex from, you're now delegated to one person and you don't know how to cope with that.
That's an interesting perspective. I have to say, I do agree with you. I definitely do believe, just in my own experiences, and if I can just say this one thing really quickly. So I am a newly divorced woman. My divorce was actually finalized a month and a half ago. So I'm currently not married, But to go back to your point, I agree. It is most definitely a culture shock to some men. So then, for me, being a woman, it questions, what exactly do men think is going to happen when they get married? Like, do you think there's going to be like this light switch that comes on and say, oh, okay, now I have to not take my player hat off and now I have to be committed to this one woman? Like, I often wonder, do men understand that this is work? It takes work. And, you have to be 100% committed to your wife, basically, or to your spouse. So
Yeah.
That's a question that I often have. Like, what exactly do men think will happen once they get married?
So I personally believe that we spend so much time of our life chasing women that we never mentally prepare for marriage. While I think it's opposite for women. They are always preparing for marriage and not chasing men. So I think and I know for a lot of men, there's a hole within ourselves. So what we're chasing isn't necessarily the vagina. We're chasing something to fill ourselves with. And we don't understand that once we get married, your wife isn't going to be able to fill that hole because you've already filled it with 30 other people. So, it only grows bigger the more people that you add to it. And we never come to that realization.
Mhm. Exactly. Ooh, you just hit on something. So, unspoken expectation is what I
Yes.
would associate with that whole. And the way I see people is we're all like puzzles, right? And if you
Yes.
have a certain missing piece of your individual puzzle, going to another person, getting married, thinking that that person is going to fill whatever gap it is that you're looking to be filled, is not going to work. And that's from a male perspective and female perspective. And we family, so I can speak transparently.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was that woman who, first of all, didn't even realize that I had missing pieces, and also didn't realize that I unknowingly expected my ex-husband to fill certain spaces within me that he didn't have the capability to fill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's whoa, yeah. You coming out the gate swinging, Jackie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we got 30 minutes. We got to get to
Hey, indeed,
it.
indeed. So yeah, that unspoken expectation, and it also goes back to communication. Number
Hmm.
one, even before we get married, I should already come to the table being a whole human being, meaning
Yes.
that if I'm coming as a half human being, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to
Hmm.
be looking for my husband to feel that other half, and that's not what he was created to do, and
Right.
vice versa. Just like you said, a man coming to the table, same thing. You're not whole, and then you're looking for this woman to complete you. It's not going to work.
Hmm. And I think oftentimes we shy away from hard conversations. So my wife the other day, she asked me, she was like, "Do you love me more now?" And she was like, or something along those lines. And I had to respond. I was like, no, she responded, could we still be together if I was like the same person I was when you married me? And I said, no, because the person that I am today is not the person I was 6 years ago. The person that you were 6 years ago does not have the capacity to love me and help me where I need to be helped.
Wow.
And I think so many times with marriage, we have this happily ever after image in our head, not understanding that even if there's no such thing as a happily ever after, because there's always work to be done. And there's always work to be done because we're always growing. And I think we often forget that this person, even though we're married, they're still on a separate life journey. And we never come to realize, like, hey, they're going in that direction, I'm going in this direction. So now they come to the terms like, oh, you don't love me anymore. And it's like, no, you don't respect each other's differences.
That's it.
You
That's
know?
My God. You don't respect each other's differences, or you don't respect the fact that we're both evolving.
Yeah.
If you understand that concept or that aspect, period, then you would understand that number. It has absolutely nothing to do with me that my spouse is changing. No, he's evolving as a person, which is what we're all supposed to do.
Yes.
And I choose to show a level of grace to him as he's evolving, because when it's my turn to start evolving, I want that same level of grace and compassion, because sometimes when we are in that season of evolution in our lives, sometimes we don't even recognize, we don't even know what's going on.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I'm trying to figure it out myself, let alone try. So sometimes I can't even explain because I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Hmm.
So just having a level of compassion, and that's something that I struggle with because I didn't understand
Yeah.
what was going on. You know what I mean? So it definitely takes work, and it definitely um you just have to have that level of understanding that, listen, we're both just evolving. Show each other grace.
Hmm. Yeah. And for me, I think respect is such a deeply rooted underlying issue. I know for me and my wife is a creative. Like, she can sing, she plays music, she acts, like everything. So she's multifaceted. I have my speaking and my writing, So it's like we're literally in two different arenas.
Mhm. Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I always say, hey, how can I support you? What
Wow.
am I able to do to make your dream help come into fruition? And she does the same for me. Like right now, she's in the living room watching the kids, making sure they don't make noise. You know, it's just something so simple. Like I'll take the kids out the house to the park so she can record singing videos. It's literally really simple, but we as humans were selfish.
Ooh,
And
hello.
and people think that when you get married that selfishness is no longer there. And that's not true. You will always need to take care of yourself. And that is absolutely fine. That's what self-care is for. You make sure that you're okay, so that way when you come to this table, like you said, you will be whole. And most people don't understand that. It's like, oh, my better half. And it's like, no, my wife isn't half of me. She's a whole her.
That's it. That's it. Oh my gosh. As you were talking, Jackie, what I saw was two people with two different, and this is the analogy that I use for marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a beautiful, complicated dance almost, right?
Yeah.
Where you have your own dance style, your wife has her own dance style, and that's just what marriage is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the goal is to try to figure out how your rhythm and her rhythm can match or can
Yes.
mesh so well so that when you all dance, your flow is just beautifully meshed together. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Having that I don't know, that's an analogy that helps me,
Yeah.
because understanding that, yes, and let's go back to the selfishness. Might I add that sometimes in my personal experience, the selfishness heightened once I got married.
Mm.
Do that make sense?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I felt he was obligated
Mm.
to fulfill every need that I had,
Yeah.
period. It's so very selfish, not taking into consideration anything he had going on, anything he was going through. No, this is an itch that I need to be scratched, and I need you to scratch it. So yeah, forget whatever else you got going on. You know
Right.
what I mean? So dare I say so, in my personal case, my selfishness grew, and I can 100% admit that. So coming to that understanding too, yeah, you got to scale back a little bit. You have to allow your spouse that space to be able to do them, and understand that there is a level of accountability that I have to take for me. I can't put everything off on my spouse. I can't do that.
Absolutely. And just even going back to the analogy of dancing, like I think that's perfect. Two different people, two separate rhythms. And I think that we also have to continuously extend grace to your partner for when they step on your toes.
Ooh,
And we should never, granted, there are certain lines that should never be crossed. But those lines are between you and your partner. You set the boundaries for your relationship. What works for you may not work for others. But if they are within those boundaries, I feel you should never get tired of extending grace.
You can't get tired of when you're married to another human being, because that's equivalent to God putting a limit of how many times he extends his grace to us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He don't.
Mhm.
He don't put any limits to that. So how dare I do that to his son? I
Yeah.
can't do that. And how dare his son do that to me? So when you are, I think that one piece of advice that I would offer anyone who is married, getting married, want to be married, have an unlimited bank account of forgiveness and
Yeah.
grace.
And
Gonna
I
need it.
think the other key is not keeping record. A lot of
Ooh.
times it's like, oh, they hurt me. And we take it personal. And it's like, I never intended to hurt you. I made mistakes because of my shortcomings, because of everything that had to do with me. My shortcomings are not a reflection of who you are. They're things that I need to improve on for myself. But so often we take that hurt personal.
Mhm.
And that's, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest downfalls, thinking that everything is happening to you. And
Mhm.
that's never true. Things happen around you. And even if it does affect you, it's not because of you. And people don't understand.
Yeah. That goes with a level of self-awareness, self-confidence. If you struggle with like insecurity, You're
Yeah.
gonna always feel, or you struggle with being a victim all the time.
Hmm.
You know, and that's a deeper, that you have a deeper rooted issue if that's the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so I most definitely think that you have to have a high level of confidence and you have to have a high level of self-awareness to where you do understand that just because something may have affected you, that don't mean that it was intended for, you know what I mean? You was not the intended
Yeah.
target. You can't take everything to heart. You do have to have a certain level of let it happen. Let's talk
Hmm.
about it. Let's deal with it, and then we move on.
Yeah. I want people to understand that I personally believe that marriage is a beautiful thing. I think that everyone should seek counseling before marriage.
Oh, let's
And
just, can I
yeah, yeah,
interject?
go
Oh my
ahead, go ahead.
God. If I can say what the biggest downfall is, or honestly speaking, and this is just my opinion, I believe most marriages end in divorce because they wasn't properly prepared.
Yes.
Premarital counseling that I went through, I couldn't tell you one thing they told me. Not one thing. I felt so I felt like I was tossed in a whirlwind unprepared. Like no one told me that when the storms come, this is what you should do. No one told me that you're going to go through some difficult seasons, but guess what?
Yeah.
You and me and my ex-husband, you gotta buckle down together. You guys have to figure it out together. It's not you against him.
Hmm.
Understand that. You know what I mean? Come
Yeah.
together. We were not prepared, so
Yeah.
premarital counseling needs to be amped up, like next level.
And and I believe that counseling should not just be done for the premarital stage. I believe that once you reach a certain stage in marriage, you need to be recounseled because you've developed new habits. You should be a whole new person within a couple years, so you need to retouch on your goals, um, boundaries,
Yeah.
uh, roles in the marriage. You need to have all those things retouched.
Mhm.
What me and my wife do, we have a check-in. So we'll sit down and say, what do you expect of me in this next season? And then, we explain our expectations, we write down our goals, and then we do our best to execute.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So after you set your goals, when you have your next check-in, do you go back to your list and say, "Hey, remember we kind of talked about this. We didn't quite make it there. So how about we
Hmm.
put it on?" Do you do that? Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing. That's
absolutely. Because, again, my goal is to be the best version of myself for my family,
Mhm.
because I can't be the best. I can't be all that they need to be if I am not complete.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. What do you think about also while counseling before marriage and all during marriage? How about individual counseling at the same time as well? I
Oh,
also think that that's also
yeah,
necessary. You know what I mean?
yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
It's absolutely necessary because even we will have problems in our marriage, but those problems stem from an individual's place.
Yeah.
So yeah, we absolutely need to be as whole as possible. So I have to fix my BS so it doesn't bleed over and become our BS.
My God,
Yeah.
that's it right there. I'm real big on analogies. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love the analogy of bleeding on other people,
yeah,
especially other people that didn't cut you. So
yeah,
let's just
absolutely.
say, you have a childhood wound or whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
and you don't want that to spill over into your marriage. You don't want that to bleed over into your marriage because then again, your spouse may be picking up on that and may be internalizing it like they did something wrong and it has absolutely nothing to do with them, which means that they can't
Yeah.
fix that problem because it has nothing to do with them. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
So, oh God, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So I also believe in marriage that, and this might be a little uh, gritty for some people, but the topic of sex needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
I think as men, we focus on our physical pleasure and we're not worried about satisfying our wife, which is why so many women, they literally never get to experience an orgasm from a heterosexual relationship because the man doesn't understand how to please his woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I agree 100%. Sex is a major part, let's just be honest. Sex is a major part of marriage.
yeah,
Is what it is. And just like you take the time to cultivate other areas of the marriage, that sex should not be neglected at all under no circumstances. So I agree
hmm
with that. And I also think that talking about sex within your marriage is such a taboo
yeah,
for whatever reason. I don't know why. And I'm glad that our culture or our generation more so is more open about talking about things because those things matter. And we
yeah.
cannot no longer act like it don't because it do.
It
How many
does.
marriages can I can think of a few that one of the major downfalls was either finances or sex, one or the other.
And I think you should, as within a reason, you should not put limits on your partner when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Oh yeah.
So I think that you should be willing to explore and educate yourself on different aspects of sex, and you should be willing and able to understand like how the vagina works. Like, does your partner like their nipples massaged this way? You have to
Do your homework.
explore those areas. And so many people, I think, because religion has taught us that sex is not necessarily it's taboo to talk about it in the church.
Yeah.
So now we have these Christian couples, they don't know how to explore their sexuality because they've had to suppress it literally their whole lives. So we have to break out of that. Sex is beautiful when it's done correctly, and it's not just about the man's pleasure. You need to understand what makes your wife happy, especially, sorry, give me one more second.
Yeah, no, you good.
Especially if your wife is not a virgin and you're not a virgin, and you come to this woman and you say, I am not going to do this, but she's already had that pleasure before. So now you're denying her something that she's used to doing. And now you're leaving a gap that somebody else is more than willing to come and fill.
Fulfill.
Yeah. So yeah, leave no gaps.
I agree 100%. And as you were talking, the word boredom came to my mind. You know what I mean? You have to make sure that, your marriage is not suffering from boredom. You know what I mean? And the way you do that, like you said, you go back to the check-ins. You go back to the check-ins and hey, and being able to talk to your spouse, you know what I mean? Being able to say, hey, I've always wanted to try this. So what do you think? Not forcing anything on your spouse, but literally having that space to be able to say, I want to or I don't want to try this, and this. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it just goes back to the communication piece of the relationship, being comfortable to say, hey, because again, as we continue to evolve, new things will come up within us. And I need to be comfortable to tell my spouse, hey, you know what? I never thought about this before, but what do you think about trying this or whatever the case may be?
Yeah. Because, again, we should always be striving to better ourselves. So we should always be changing. And I think we'll think that she's going to be this way forever. We're going to be in love forever this way. And it's like, no, like life happens to us. Everything is affecting how we behave and how we change. Work is hard. Driving to work every day is frustrating. Kids are a lot to deal with. Like all this is shaping me constantly. I'm constantly taking in new information, changing my point of view. So no, I will not always be the same. And I need you will need to change with me. You may not have to change at the same rate, but you cannot stay stagnant in who you are. And because I'm not going to stagnate myself for nothing or no one. So you grow with me, or unfortunately, we have to part ways.
Yeah, the train stops here.
Yeah, it's okay to get off sometimes. And you just have to.
Yeah. I think anything that stands in the way of you becoming your the highest level of you is an issue. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that unfortunately also includes marriage.
Hmm.
Anything that stifles your growth or stifles your purpose in life, period,
Yeah.
that's problematic. You know what I mean? Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, I think that coming into the marriage, it should be made very clear that we're going to grow, right? We're
Yeah.
going to evolve. So as long as we continue to ensure that we both stay on the same page, I'm going to support you as you evolve. I need you to support me as I evolve, because just
Yeah.
like our individual lives go in seasons, so does the relationship. And as long
Absolutely.
as we both have that clear understanding, when things start to change, there's no reason for me to freak out, because that's what I
Yeah.
did. I freaked out. I said, "Yo, whoa, what is this?"
Yeah.
Because I didn't at that time. I'd had no idea. I came into the marriage not knowing much about marriage. Number
Yeah.
one, not knowing what my role was. Number two, and number three, not understanding that exactly what you said. I thought things would stay the same.
Hmm.
And then when my ex-husband started to shift into somebody I didn't recognize, I felt deceived. I felt,
Yeah. Yeah.
I played the victim. I did, because I
It's
didn't
like,
understand.
yeah, I don't know you anymore.
I
Yeah.
don't know you anymore. Like, what is going on? And that's when God had to snap me back into reality and say, well, wait a minute. The reason you don't know him is because the man of God is evolving. Now, what I
Hmm.
need you to do is stop focusing so much on him. And now it's time for you to do your work.
Yeah.
Now it's time for you to do your work. So God, he got on me a little bit. He really did. But I'm so grateful for it, because now I have that level of understanding. So
Yeah.
when I get married again, I have a very clear understanding of what marriage is, what it should look like, and understand that it is forever changing. And as
Right.
long as I do the work, my husband and I, as long as we do the work together, we'll be good. We'll be good.
Yeah.
And God first, we'll be good.
and lastly, I just want to say, I think people don't understand that marriage is a business. Um,
Hallelujah.
and in the Western world, we marry for love, which is the downfall. Because when you marry for love, that man on the couch playing 2K, you can't go to the rental office with a check made out of love. Like you just gonna be out. So
Literally. Literally.
so you have to understand, like, not only that, but the goal of marriage is to build something greater,
Thank you.
not just for
Legacy.
you, but for your descendants. And even
Legacy.
if you never have descendants, it's for the community. You want to build something great, and you can't do that when you just marry because you think this person is pretty.
Pretty fades.
Yeah,
Pretty fades. I need
absolutely.
substance and,
Yeah.
and legacy. That's what marriage is. Building
Hmm.
your legacy to pass down to your children, or like you said, to pass down to your community. What
Yeah.
are we building together? Something that is like, and love just won't do it. You need more ingredients than just love. I'm sorry,
Facts.
you do.
Like every single time. And again, I want people to understand that marriage is not difficult. It's difficult when, like Chris Rock said, one person can move a couch real easy. One person can't move a couch, but two people can move a couch real easy. And
Mhm.
it just makes sense. Like if you're both working, like say you're still growing separately, but you're still working towards the same goal. You
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. And ensuring that you both are very clear on what your shared goal
Yeah.
is at all times.
Hmm.
That's it. That's really it.
Yeah. And like you said, communicate. If you're diligent in communicating with your partner
Mhm.
about how you feel, and your partner should allow you that space to do so. What my wife does, she created this thing called a truth moment.
Oh, I love it.
So whenever she's feeling a certain way, she'll say truth moment.
Mm,
And regardless of what I'm doing, I have to stop and I listen. And that's a safe space. And sometimes she hurts my feelings.
yeah.
But I know she's telling me the truth. So
Mhm.
my feelings are not a factor
Yeah.
because the truth was said in love. She said it to better me so I can change.
That's
And
it.
that's all it is. Just be honest and truthful and upfront with your partner.
That should be your foundation.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, honest communication should be your foundation, because
Yeah,
you can just build on that. You can just
yeah,
build on that.
facts.
Love that truth moment. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
When your wife comes to you and say truth moments and it hurts your feelings, do you then take time to process what she said before responding?
I do my best to,
Yeah.
because I am human. Sometimes I can respond out of emotion,
Yeah.
but for the most part, again, like I said, I understand what she's telling me
Mhm.
is not meant to hurt me. And the fact that she could be so vulnerable and tell me her truth
Mhm.
means that she loves me enough and she is vulnerable enough to show that part to me.
Yeah.
So because she's able to do that, I need to honor her and do what I can to change.
Indeed, indeed. And that she felt safe enough to be able to be vulnerable and share her vulnerable truth
Yeah.
with you. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. She's awesome.
I have to meet your wife. I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you two will meet.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
You know, my twin sister lives in Davenport, Florida.
Oh, really?
So she does. She does. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So next time I visit, I'm coming to visit Brother Jackie and Sister Lewis. I'm coming.
Listen, I will cook dinner and everything.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Let me look. Let me.
All right, Latricia. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Of course, everyone can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Latricia Life Coach. You can also go over to my website at latriciawilliams.com. I have some amazing projects that will be dropping soon, so please stay tuned, stay connected.
Yeah. Make sure y'all go follow her. Definitely. She's a great woman.
Thank you, Brother
Yeah.
Jackie.
Yeah.
Oh, again, I say thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for coming. I really enjoyed it.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you.
Of course. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.